From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo, and this is From the South. It's another day for the Central American Migrant Caravan heading through Mexico on their way to the U.S. After the unfulfilled promise of the state of Veracruz to provide them with buses to reach Mexico City, the migrants have decided to gather in Puebla to continue their march. They want to rest there and wait for the rest of the group to arrive before heading to Mexico City, 100 kilometers away.
Well, I'm a bit exhausted because of the cold and because we have not eaten. Everything else is going well, thank God. I'm having health, I just have not eaten. What I want to do? Well, help my parents, get them out, give them everything I can.
Our correspondent Eduardo Martinez is in Veracruz and has more on the first caravan.
Hacia la ciudad de Córdoba.
We are here in the community of Ciudad Isla in the state of Veracruz. Families have gathered here to continue their journey to the state of Córdoba. I want to show you how some families are in desperate need of transportation, which is very hard to find, because not everyone is willing to help them. Still, they are very grateful to those who help them with food, water, and clothes. Many people are in need of clothes since it's very difficult to bring luggage with them, mostly because it's difficult to walk for long hours with too much luggage. We will keep you updated as soon as we get more information about this migrant caravan that still has almost 300 kilometers to go.
The first caravan has decided to continue moving till the Mexico City. They continue their journey either on foot or hitched for rides in trucks after the governor of Veracruz didn't fulfill his promise of providing 162 buses to carry them.
Nos vienen engañando todo el camino. Todo el camino los han engañado.
Exhausted from their long walks, these families have decided to push through, just carrying the few belongings they brought along from home.
We want to arrive to the Mexico City now. It's already been so late. The other caravan will catch up with us. What else can we do?
Help and support for them has declined. They have been walking for 2 weeks already in the Mexican territory, but have hardly covered 740 kilometers. Their desperation is starting to grow. There have been some clashes among the migrants to get a place in trucks in order to reach their next stop faster. Shelters are not enough for the migrant families. The migrants who are traveling alone or with their spouses have decided to leave the caravan and go to Puebla instead.
I first think about my children. I don't worry about the time. When we first decided to leave home, I had a date and a fixed time of departure, but there is no destiny in my mind.
They know the risk of walking through one of the most violent states of the country. The crime rate of this region has been one of the worst in Mexico, with reports of mass killing among other crimes.
The second migrant caravan is having a tough day crossing the state of Chiapas. Our correspondent, Pablo Perez, is in Pijijapan and tells us more.
We are en route between Pijijapa and Ciudad Arriaga in the southern state of Chiapas. It's a particularly treacherous day because of the distance the migrants have to walk today. There are no villages or towns on the way where they could expect some from the local people like food or water. It is a very difficult stretch of their journey. This is one of the hardest moments for them. We have already saw that with the first caravan, and still this second caravan is taking the same route, expecting to get a ride from vehicles on the road, and also with the support of People with No Frontiers organization who help children and women to reach as far as possible. They aim for the city of Arriaga, but if not, to reach at least until the town of Tonala. This, taking into account that the first caravan is already more than 500 kilometers in ahead of them. It's encouraging for this group because they see the possibility to join them in the Mexico City.
We thank Pablo Perez for that report. The U.S. is preparing its borders with helicopters and barbed wires to receive the migrant caravan. Since last Friday, Donald Trump's administration has been reinforcing the southern border to prevent the mass entrance of migrants into the country. There are 5,200 additional soldiers, helicopters that have night vision and motion sensors, drones, and barbed wire in Texas and also in Arizona and California. There are nearly 3,500 National Guard members, and they could reach 15,000 in total, the biggest contingent used in decades inside the U.S. Last Saturday, Trump also said that barbed wires used in a proper way can make a beautiful scene. Guatemala's President Jimmy Morales has arrived in the U.S. to discuss the Migrant Caravan. He will also visit a migrant shelter which temporarily houses children who have been traveling alone in the caravan. Later, he is going to Honduras to meet with Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez. Morales is also scheduled to visit El Salvador, where he'll meet with Vice President Oscar Ortiz. Renowned philosopher, linguist, and activist Nom Chomsky has blamed Washington for the misery and sufferings of the migrants from Central America en route to the U.S.
With regard to the caravan of poor and miserable people fleeing from severe oppression, violence, terror, extreme poverty from 3 countries: Honduras, mainly Honduras, secondarily Guatemala, thirdly El Salvador, not Nicaragua, incidentally. 3 countries that have been under harsh U.S. domination way back, but particularly since the 1980s, when Reagan's terror wars devastated particularly El Salvador and Guatemala, secondarily Honduras. Nicaragua was attacked by Reagan, of course, but Nicaragua was the one country which had an army to defend the population. In the other countries, the army were the state terrorists backed by the United States.
With both Alberto and Keiko Fujimori in prison and an approval rating of less than 20%, experts believe Peru has seen the end of Fujimorismo.
After only being 40,000 votes away from becoming Peru's next president, Keiko Fujimori is now behind bars. She is accused of being at the heart of a money laundering organization. She joins her father's footsteps, who is also imprisoned. Experts say Fujimorismo is going through its worst crisis.
People realize the type of people they truly are, that is, a criminal gang. Many Peruvians avoided this truth. Some even supported them under the tale that Fujimori beat terrorism, that he beat inflation.
The decline in their popularity and political downfall is evident. Their seats in parliament have dropped from 73 to 57 due to resignations and other issues.
Fuerza Popular's leadership has lost all power. They can barely enter Congress again. Keiko will never again run for president. Fujimorismo is over.
Fujimorismo has been accused of using their power in Congress to push laws for its own interests and to paying off corrupt Congress members, judges and prosecutors. According to the latest poll, 79% of Peruvians consider Keiko Fujimori as the most corrupt politician, while 82% say they wouldn't vote for her.
Why will I vote for them? I know who those people are. No way I will do that.
Seeing this corruption scandal play out, I would not put my country in danger.
After the scandal, the news, they have lost all credibility.
With the entire Fujimori family under investigation, the loss of seats in parliament, and with the public losing confidence, many believe Fujimorismo is nearly over.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel has met with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang. North Korean state media has described the visit as a historic event, highlighting the invincible friendship of the two allies. The Cuban president is on international state visits to multiple countries. He already visited Russia, and after DPRK, he will continue his tour to China, Vietnam, and Laos. A group of 91 Venezuelans have departed from the Dominican Republic to return to their country as part of the Venezuelan government's return to the homeland plan. This is the second such special flight from the Dominican Republic. The returning migrants say they wish to work and contribute to the development of Venezuela.
I am coming back thanks to the call of President Nicolás Maduro. We are going to work together. I have been here for almost a year and I have had a good time. I'm going back after the President's call to work together in building the country, and it's worth it.
I'm going back because of my family, to see my kids and to continue with what I was doing. For me, Venezuela is something to be proud of. When you're abroad, you value your country much more.
Our correspondent Daisy Toussaint has the details.
From the International Airport of Las Americas in Santo Domingo, the second flight has taken off from the Dominican Republic as part of the return to the homeland plan. Let's recall that in the month of October, the first flight, which was part of the plan, took off with 90 Venezuelans. The second flight is taking 91 people. That sums up to 181 Venezuelans who have left the Dominican Republic in less than 2 months. The country has worked alongside the Venezuelan government in order to accomplish this.
We thank Daisy for that report. Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza is on an official visit to Dominica to celebrate its 40th Independence Day. Upon his arrival, Arreaza held a bilateral meeting with the Dominican Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit. On the 3rd of November 1978, the Caribbean nation gained its freedom from the British rule and became an independent republic within the Commonwealth. The Bolivian President Evo Morales has used his Twitter to express his concerns about Jorge Glass's health. He wrote, "Very worried for the health of brother Jorge Glass, the elected vice president of Ecuador, who is now on its 15th day of hunger strike to defend his human rights that are being violated. We make an urgent call to the international community to protect his life." Countries across Latin America and the Caribbean have been celebrating the Day of the Dead. Giving offerings is an important part of these celebrations in Mexico. They are placed in public spaces and houses as an ancestral tradition.
The students killed 50 years ago in what is known as the Tlatelolco Massacre have been honored with this offering at Plaza Santo Domingo.
UNAM has organized this tribute to commemorate the young, brave people who changed the history of our country.
This is a tribute made by students to condemn all the brutality and police abuse during 1968. It is outrageous that people behind those crimes are not in prison.
Every year, the 1968 student movement takes part in these ancestral rituals, which are an expression of Mexican culture.
This is something that is taught to us since we are born. When we are kids, we place the offerings with our grandmothers. This is a very nice tradition.
At the end of October, many houses, schools, museums, and public square place their offerings for the Day of the Dead, the most important tradition of Mexican culture. In the University of the Claustro de Sor Juana, the offering was dedicated to famous poet Sor Juana and Mexican icon Frida Kahlo.
There were two strong women who fought for freedom, for women's rights, for access to education, and for freedom of speech. We pay tribute to two exceptional women.
This pre-Hispanic tradition commemorates all the people who are no longer with us.
Each one of us are part of this tradition. Each one of us have different perspectives about what death means.
The ritual goes beyond offerings. There are parades for the Day of the Dead, decorated with schools and even the popular Catrina, which symbolize the presence of death in our lives.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives, Friday, only on Telesur. world infested by inequalities, abuse of power, and injustice. The American journalist Abby Martin covers the struggle for fundamental rights worldwide, deepening into the search of files which uncover the empire's strategies through our screen and web platform in English. The Empire Files with Abby Martin. Tuesday, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. The United States will hold midterm elections on Tuesday amid a growing polarization between the Democratic and Republican parties. In the middle of U.S. President Donald Trump's first term, citizens will elect members of the Congress that is made up of the House of Representatives and the Senate. All 435 seats on the House of Representatives are up for grabs, while 35 of the 100 seats in the Senate will be contested. Jobs, healthcare, and immigration, especially with the approaching Migrant Caravan, are high on the political agenda. The outcome will largely influence the possibility of President Trump's re-election in 2020. Days before midterm elections, young Democrats in New York are reaching out to eligible voters, which includes a huge number of the Latino community.
Catalina Cruz is one of the faces of a progressive movement inside the Democrat Party. Running as a candidate for the 39th District of the State Assembly of Queens, New York, she's campaigning door-to-door to motivate Latinos to go out and vote.
This is my way of saying that I'm here, I'm from this community, I need to listen to their needs, so I can be a leader, and also to remind them that on November the 6th they have to vote.
According to Cruz, a lot of Latinos don't vote because they are disappointed in the system.
For a long time, the Democrats and Republicans have taken the issue of migration, our community, and the Dreamers as a political matter that they negotiate as they please without thinking what they are doing or how they are affecting people's lives.
Community activists highlight that a lack of information contributes to the indifference of the Latino community in the electoral process.
Even though some have information on voting, others don't have any information at all and don't take the time to look for it. So we try to motivate them and to give them information so they don't have excuse to not vote.
They have to represent themselves and think about their kids. If parents don't set an example for their children, they are going to remain in the shadows, and that's not fair.
According to social organizations, low participation is the outcome of several factors. One of them, the schedule of voting centers, which is not always suitable with that of schools. Also, ballot boxes are often set up far away from subway and bus stops. According to the Pew Research Center, 20 million Latinos are eligible to vote. However, in the last elections, under 7 million went to vote. Electoral participation of Latino voters changes a lot depending on the state. Latinos who live in Arizona and California are expected to see an increase in terms of participation. Other states with a large presence of Latinos are Florida, Texas, and New York.
And now let's take a look at what else is happening around the world.
For the first time since January, the Ruban refugee camp in Syria has reportedly received aid supplies from the United Nations. Food, hygiene, and health supplies were distributed to nearly 50,000 people stranded in the camp located in a rebel-controlled area near the Jordanian border. The UN said 10,000 children are also expected to receive emergency vaccination. Lack of supplies have caused at least a dozen deaths in recent weeks. New Caledonians have voted to remain part of France in a referendum. 56% of people voted against the proposal that the Pacific island become independent. The outcome could raise tensions with the indigenous Kanak people who tend to support the separation and are disadvantaged compared with the white population. The proposal could possibly be raised again in 2 other referendums before 2022.
The results perfectly reflect the country's state of mind. We must respect the separatists. They represent nearly half the country now, according to the polls. We must respect them, extend them a hand and get them to meet us halfway. I think that's the only path we can take.
At least 15 people have died and dozens more injured in northwest China in a motorway toll crash. The accident happened when a truck crashed into a line of cars, piling up 31 vehicles. Hundreds of officers were sent to the site to rescue the injured and control the traffic. Local media reports the incident is under investigation, but the truck driver, who survived, claims his brakes failed while traveling downhill.
Sri Lankan president has said he would lift the suspension of parliament in 10 days. The announcement comes amid growing international pressure to resolve the leadership crisis in the country. On October 26th, the president abruptly fired Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and replaced him with Mahinda Rajapaksa and shut the parliament. The supporters of the ousted prime minister are demanding for a vote in the parliament on the 2 candidates to decide who has the majority support. A Bahraini court has ordered life sentences for 3 senior opposition members on charges of spying for Qatar. The court sentenced Sheikh Ali Salman, Secretary General of the opposition Al-Wifaq Group, and 2 other members of the same group to life in jail for transferring confidential information and receiving financial support from a rival state. The ruling comes just months after a high court had acquitted Salman of the charges of colluding with Qatar. The country is due to hold elections on 24th of November. For the first time in Spain, the 5 main prison unions have agreed on a 6-day strike to fight against the lack of proper working conditions.
According to the unions, the 2-day strike in October was very successful. The unions blame the Interior Ministry for withdrawing an economical package offer just 2 days after proposing it in September. The government had proposed allocation of $140 million to improve the salaries of the workers.
Better salary, better working conditions, and improved security for all of us, interns and workers of prison institutions.
This money would increase the average salary of workers to almost $400 per month in 3 years, a salary they ask in addition to their present pay.
There are huge gaps in salaries in prisons, sometimes as high as $800, even when we are doing exactly the same job.
In addition, they also denounce privatization of security services and the lack of investment in prisons. They also complain against the government's ignorance against the workers in health and sanitary sectors. There's been a decline in the working conditions in total of 84 Spanish jails. In short, current degradation working conditions in the 84 Spanish prisons.
The Spanish penal system would die as we know it because of worsening of public employment and lack of investment in public workers' welfare.
This conflict started during the rule of the Popular Party. Then, the PSOE made promises to the unions, but when they came to power, they failed to fulfill their commitments. They're completely silent now.
If there is no answer, we will intensify our protests and demonstrations.
The workers' union prefer to avoid this confrontation but remain strong in its decision. There are still 4 days of the strike called for November. They are confident that these strikes will be beneficial not only for the public workers, but also to improve the human rights of prisoners.
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And also join us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.